In the 1830s, a New York newspaper reported in the small headlines of the day about an amazing discovery, life on the moon. In coming years, this story and the accompanying drawings rocketed all around the world. It was one of the first examples of what we today call fake news. As you can see from the segment you've just watched, fake news is nothing new. It has been around almost as long as there has been a news media. But nowadays, with the proliferation of social media sites and the ease with which websites that seem real can be created, fake news has become a serious issue. Journalists and media professionals around the world are trying to deal with them in the wake of all of the allegations that occurred during the 2016 US presidential election and continuing now through this year as well. Why is this important? Why is protecting people from fake news important? First of all, if you want to be believed, you want people to believe in you. And people will believe in you if you are in fact creating honest, ethical journalism. What's important is whether you yourself are intellectually honest, whether you look at all sides. Even if you come out of something with an opinion, that's okay, but you've at least done the work, you've at least thought about it. And that credibility, that is what will carry your message to a large audience around the world. And when you are passing along information that is inaccurate, that is fake, you are losing your own credibility, you are harming your own credibility, and you are going to make it difficult for people to pay attention to you. There has been a great deal of reporting recently about the places where fake news is created. Individuals throughout Central and Eastern Europe, in Macedonia of all places, are creating websites, gaining a lot of traffic for them, and producing news that is demonstrably fake. The reason they're doing it is often as crass and as simple as wanting to make a lot of money. If you can create a website that has a plausible name and uses a lot of the buzzwords and the phrases that are out there, your website can gain a large audience, and a large audience brings advertising automatically. Advertising on websites is big business. Websites that have large audiences draw advertising, set up through Google, set up through YouTube, set up through other media. So as soon as you gain a lot of page views for your website, you can actually make money. Plus, social media such as Facebook tend to reinforce and amplify the sound, the echo of the fake news. So people are getting fake news in their news feeds on Facebook. They are then routinely clicking share, and that news becomes, as they say, viral. And those websites, whether they're articles or videos, get lots of traffic, and that traffic brings more advertising. And this is a cycle. I won't say that's benign. That's quite terrible, in fact, because it harms the credibility of all news organizations, of legitimate news organizations. But what it is it isn't meant to carry a certain political agenda. There is a second category of fake news that is in fact politically driven. Individuals and organizations, sometimes even governments, are creating websites, spreading stories that are demonstrably false, inaccurate, misleading, but sometimes just enough of a hint of reality that people might believe them. And that's one of the challenging things happening in the world today, in the echo chambers of social media. People who see something that they agree with, that reinforces a position they already have, will almost instantly hit share and pass it along to others in their circles. And these grow and grow. And the unfortunate impact of that is that attitudes are reinforced. It becomes very difficult to shake the echo, to get the bad news, as it were, get the fake news off of your back in this day and age. Now, there are studies that have tried to determine, and researchers have tried to determine whether, in fact, for example, in a very specific case, the fake news industry that sprung up around the candidacy of Donald Trump in 2015 and 2016 before he was elected president did, in fact, affect the outcome of the American election. We're not talking here about WikiLeaks dumps and other items like that. We're talking about all of the many, many hundreds, if not thousands, of fake websites that produced articles that were demonstrably fake and were primarily critical of Hillary Clinton or in other ways supportive of Donald Trump. Now, it's difficult to say that these articles and these websites turned the election. There are many other factors came into play, of course. But I think there is a consensus out there that the atmosphere was poisoned, was tainted by fake news in the 2016 election. One of the biggest problems that I see with that is, of course, the possibility of the democratic process being disrupted. The flip side of that, or a part of that, of course, is that the credibility of the regular news media has been damaged as well. If there are, in fact, websites out there that look reasonable, that have names similar to real news organizations, and the graphics and the design are similar to those of real news organizations, and they produce fake news that almost automatically degrades the value of real news organizations and real news. And it makes it difficult for people to believe. And in the echo chamber of social media, people tend to believe what they see that comes to them from their friends, and they tend to discount what comes from other locales. So news media organizations that are working to debunk or fake news stories, political individuals, politicians, business leaders, and others who are forced to contend with fake news stories, to spend a lot of time researching and proving that those assertions about them are incorrect. They cannot perform what their functions, they cannot do the jobs they're supposed to do, that they want to do. And so a cycle is created that slows down, that gums up the process of a democratic society. While we've been talking about fake news, you may ask yourself, why do we need to bother? People will believe what they want to believe, whether or not it's true. That is certainly a problem, and that certainly has an element of truth in it. But that doesn't remove your responsibility to be an accurate, fair, and truthful journalist, blogger, citizen, photographer, someone who wants to get a message out. It is really a core function that you have to be as accurate as possible and to avoid passing along phony information. Here's something that a major news director in the United States said recently, and I think it bears paying attention to. The central job of journalism is to establish the facts and share them as widely as we can. NPR Senior Vice President of News, Michael Oreskes, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. These are your key jobs as journalists, citizen bloggers, photographers, video producers, and the like. The added value, the thing you can do to improve the lives of your fellow citizens, to communicate to the world outside what is going on in your countries, is to tell stories honestly and accurately, to avoid exaggeration, to avoid passing along inaccurate information, because in the end it will bounce back to you and it will reduce your credibility. And any of you who have seen my other lecture on journalism ethics know this core message that I try and bring across to you, and I will bring it across again. Your personal credibility is your greatest asset. If people trust you and believe you, your message will get heard. That's a very, very important thing. It's a very fragile thing. One or two mistakes can harm your credibility almost irreparably. It's very difficult to repair a broken reputation. The world's most important and significant news media organizations are developing methods to defend themselves against fake news. And many of those tools are available to you on a smaller scale basis. This is a real challenge. Organizations such as the BBC and the New York Times and Deutsche Welle have staffs that check stories, that attempt to review other news media stories, and try to be as accurate as possible. The resources that these organizations have available are primarily in the people with research skills. There are also some technical tools being developed. You may have read about Facebook, you may have read about Google, you may have read about Twitter, and you may have read about Wikipedia, some of the largest and most influential websites in the world. In fact, ones that have been used to expand and promote fake news, whether, as I said, for commercial or political use. They are under pressure and are developing both technical tools and devoting staff to improving the quality of the information on their websites. Wikipedia is creating entire teams of editors to check the stories and check the information that's posted on Wikipedia. That said, no matter how much Wikipedia attempts to keep its thousands upon thousands of articles in dozens of languages accurate, one of the first things I would say to you is do not rely solely on Wikipedia for background information. This is something that they're teaching in elementary schools as well, because students are going to Wikipedia, copy pasting material and putting it in their reports. And while there are a lot of kind of organic methods within Wikipedia and now some technical teams being developed to defend against fake information being posted on their websites, it's impossible for them to keep it scrupulously clean 100% of the time. So if you are doing a report or you're researching something and you come across something on Wikipedia, please, please, please don't use that as your first and last source of information. More than that, your key task as video, audio, and text written content journalists is to produce accurate information. And the best way that you can do that is to go out and talk to people. See what's going on. Don't sit in your room. Don't rely on pulling information for your reports over the internet. Call people up. Go out and speak to them. Take the picture yourself. Record the audio yourself. Shoot the video yourself. And then that really is only the start. If you go to an event, whether it's a press conference, a political rally, a party, a concert, a social gathering, a rally, something out in public, it is your job to see as much as possible, to talk to as many people as possible, and to put it all into perspective, to do additional research afterward, not rely on other people's accounts. This is hard. This is a challenge. This will test your skills. This will test sometimes your ability to get out there. This will, in fact, sometimes in certain places, I know this is a difficult thing, and not everybody that I'm speaking to through this video lives in a community, lives in a city, lives in a country where freedom of the media is respected. And this is a challenge, and I don't underestimate it at all. I do not take this lightly when I tell you to do this. But it is important for you to go out and find as much material as you can, to do as much of your own reporting as possible, talk to as many reliable people as possible, and then sit down and think about it before you hit the send button. Do not rely on one person alone. If there are documents available, please go out and get them. And most importantly, do not just click send or share from something after you've seen it and it is something that reinforces your own beliefs. I'm not telling anybody to report things that they don't believe. I'm telling people that it's okay to have an opinion and a perspective when you do your journalistic writing or photography. A camera lens can only see a small amount. That's okay. You're attempting to make a point. I agree, that's the way it is, that's important. But especially when you see something that reinforces your belief, I think the intellectually honest thing to do is to take a breath, take a pause, think about it, check to see if it's really true, and only then go out and try and spread that word. Now, there's a famous, if somewhat cynical, statement from a classic American journalism organization, and I try not to use too many American examples in these talks because they are the journalistic history and life in America is very different from what you all know. However, I think there are some strengths and values in American journalism. Here's a story, here's a saying I learned many years ago. Again, it's a bit cynical, but it's also something worth keeping in the back of your head. If your mother tells you she loves you, check it out. Now that borders on the cynical. And the biggest challenge that a young journalist has is to walk that line between cynicism and skepticism. Cynicism means you don't trust anybody. Cynicism means you don't believe anybody is ever doing anything for the right reason. Cynicism means that whatever anybody tells you is purely for their own benefit, and they're trying to spin you and sell you a bill of goods that isn't necessarily for the larger good. You do need an element of that, but I would rather you tilt towards the side of skepticism. I think it's still possible in this day and age to give people the benefit of the doubt. Certain people you trust, people who you trust have told you are trustworthy people. Many people are out there trying to do the right thing. Maybe not always for the right reasons, but there are many people out there trying to do the right thing. Being cynical about someone or an event simply because it seems as if it's self-serving is as destructive to you as it is to the audience of people you might report for, and to the people who are actually doing these projects. So again, this is a very difficult line to walk, the line between cynicism, where you don't believe anything, and skepticism, where you're willing to give someone the benefit of the doubt, but you are going to check it out, you're going to confirm it. There are tools available for you that are accessible even if you're not part of a global news organization like Reuters or Deutsche Welle or Agence France Presse. There are websites, there are institutions, there are organizations that are working to try and confirm the news that's out there in the world that in fact are trustworthy. Here are some tips to guide you when you're trying to determine if a story is true or not. Remember, reality is complex. Read first and then share. Check the source and their sources. Watch out for recycled stories from other sites. Google it. Are known news sites also covering the story? An odd domain usually means an odd story. Check definitions, find your own data, get historical perspective, and seek context. The verification handbook is available in many languages. Snopes.com, hoaxes.org, factcheck.org, accountablejournalism.org. You may never know 100% of the truth. In fact, it's intellectual hubris to believe that you will get 100% of the story and be 100% accurate. So you get as much as you can. Be as accurate as you can. If you learn something after your first report, do a follow-up story. Correct yourself. Be willing to tell people that yes, something changed. What I thought before is not accurate. That will enhance your credibility over time rather than diminish it. Do not hide your mistakes. The work you are trying to do as citizen journalists is challenging, difficult, sometimes even dangerous. But it is essential, especially in countries where the tradition of a free press has not been deeply established. You can go a ways toward developing that tradition within your own country. Again, as I've said to you many times and on many Q&As we've done together, I'm not telling you to do anything dangerous. You can only accept as much risk as you are willing to take. And it is not my job, it is not my place to tell you to do something risky. But in your own way, your honesty, your personal intellectual honesty, your willingness to do the work, to research the information, to hold off pressing that button until you check one more thing, that will go a long way toward building credibility in your work, to opening up your country to greater diversity of voices and opinions, and to improve the discourse worldwide. So, to sum up, do not hit the send button. Do not hit the share button without giving it some thought. Check things out. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Rather make a mistake by not pressing the button and leaving something unreported, at least for today, than creating a misimpression, a false impression, because it will take a lot more time to correct your mistake and rebuild your credibility than it does to damage it. As I said at the beginning, fake news is something that has been with us almost as long as there has been a printing press. Those line drawings of monkey men with wings that were purportedly descriptions of what life was like on the moon went around the world. So be careful, be smart, be accurate, and walk that fine line between cynicism and skepticism. Thank you.